Monday. This is First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is Nick Wright, still getting dressed. Chris Canty joining us this morning. You guys have a good weekend?
Good weekend of football.
Great weekend of football. We're going to dive right in and start with the Ravens and Texans. All right, so this wasn't quite the quarterback battle that we had hoped for between Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson, and you can't pin that on Lamar. He was lights out, threw for 222 yards, 4 touchdowns, added another 86 yards on the ground, more than enough for the Ravens to top the Texans 41-7. The Baltimore faithful showing their quarterback a whole lot of love, chanting MVP. And teammate Mark Ingram couldn't agree more.
The MVP front runner. If anybody else got to say something different about that, then come see me. Yeah. I'm right here in Bmore outside the bank. If you got an issue with that, come see me. I'm about that. Big trust. Woo woo. Lamar Jackson in the flesh. Yes, sir. Big trust.
I'm with you.
All right, Nick. Ravens looked fantastic yesterday. Some would say even maybe as good as any other team in the league. Are they the best team in the NFL right now?
Right now, they're clearly the best team in the AFC, and they are right there, along with Green Bay and New Orleans, in my eyes, as the best teams in the NFL. I'd like to see them go up against some of those best teams in the NFC, other than Seattle, who, by the way, they won they beat in this last month of football. They've beaten New England. They've beaten Seattle. They just annihilated Houston. It is hard to find a thing right now, Chris Canty, the Baltimore Ravens don't do exceptionally well. Early in the year, they weren't getting to the quarterback. They've started to do that. Early in the year, the pass defense on the back end was not as good as we were used to in recent times from Baltimore Ravens team. They then trade for Marcus Peters. He was sensational yesterday and already has had a couple huge splash plays. They get Jimmy Smith back from injury. They already had Brandon Carr. They already had Humphrey. They already had Earl Thomas. And, of course, most notably, they have a guy right now, this moment, playing as well as anyone in the league in Lamar Jackson, and one of the best coaches to go along with it. So if you said they're the best team in football, I wouldn't argue with you. I think they are clearly the best team in the AFC, and because they have that head-to-head tiebreaker with New England, they're only a half game back of being the 1 seed in the AFC, which I think is absolutely within their grasp, considering they just got through the toughest portion of their schedule, a perfect 4-0.
No, you're absolutely right. There wasn't much that went wrong for the Ravens yesterday outside of not being able to get the Justin Tucker field goal, which was from automatic range after Matt Judon strip sack. But, I mean, that was a complete performance by that Ravens team. And when you look at what they've done defensively, I think you're absolutely right. The turnaround has been led by the secondary of the Ravens. They realized that they couldn't get a lot of pressure on the quarterback early, so you need to be able to hold up on the back end. That's why they made the trade with Seattle to bring over Marcus Peters with Jimmy Smith and Marlon Humphrey. That's as good a cornerback trio as we have in the National Football League. And, oh, by the way, they have Earl Thomas patrolling the deep middle of the field. So you saw yesterday that secondary forced Deshaun Watson to hold the ball a little longer than he wanted to, and then the rush was able to get there. Patrick Owasor, Matt Judon, and others. So for me, defensively, that's been the catalyst, that secondary. But offensively, they're just so multifaceted in terms of the different dimensions that they can present to opposing defenses. That run game, and then having the 3 tight ends with Nick Boyle and Mark Andrews and Hayden Hurst, those 3 guys create matchup problems for defenses. If you try to play base defense, then they're going to create matchup problems in the passing game with those tight ends. If you go with nickel defense, well, they can line it up and run it at you with Lamar Jackson being one of the primary options in the backfield. So I just think in terms of the different dimensions that offense can present to opposing defenses, that's going to be a tough challenge for any defense in the National Football League to slow down.
And for Lamar, this was an important game for a number of reasons. One, obviously, every game's important when you're trying to get a bye, trying to be the 1 seed. But Lamar is 14-3 as a starter in the regular season. But 2 of those losses came against the best quarterback in the AFC, the best quarterback in football, Patrick Mahomes. The 3 best quarterbacks in the conference, I think at this point it's pretty clear, are Lamar, Mahomes, and Deshaun Watson. Had he then lost to Deshaun Watson, I wonder if people would wonder, okay, so Lamar, as great as he is, when he goes up against the guys he's going to be going up against for the next decade, Watson and Mahomes, does the other team have the quarterback edge? I thought Baltimore would win this weekend, but I thought Deshaun Watson would have a better game, not only than he did, but a better game than Lamar. I just thought the rest of the Ravens would come to play in a way Baltimore could win. Lamar was sensational. He made no significant mistakes. And you mentioned the 3 tight ends and the running backs. He did what he did without any significant receiver production the entire game. Another game we're going to talk about, Philadelphia. Their team had no significant receiver production, and their offense got stuck in the mud after the first quarter and could never get going. The Ravens had no significant receiver production and dropped 41 on a team that is also in the running or was in the running for a bye in the AFC. It was a sensational performance by Lamar.
Well, here's the thing. Offensively, I thought the Ravens got out to a slow start. Lamar Jackson in particular, he was only 1 for his first 6, but the Houston Texans offense couldn't capitalize on the miscues, and I think that team had a hard time getting up off.
You?
Well, after you saw how the first couple of drives ended up, I mean, you had the strip sack by Matt Judon, but the fact is that they didn't get off the mat from that DPI challenge that Bill O'Brien had with DeAndre Hopkins and Marlon Humphrey in coverage. It should have been the ball spotted at the 1-yard line in a goal-to-goal situation, but the refs didn't overturn the non-call, and as a result, you saw that Texans team just was deflated in that moment, and then Baltimore capitalized on the momentum. And when you allow a team like Baltimore to get ahead early in a football game, it's going to be tough because they have so much balance on the offensive side of the ball. If you make them more one-dimensional, then you have a chance. But in order to do that, your offense has to dictate the complexion of the game by being able to put points on the board first, and the Texans just couldn't do that. Baltimore rattled off 34 points before the Texans even got on the scoreboard, which was midway through the fourth quarter. So the fact is that this offense, with Lamar Jackson as their quarterback, if they can have that type of balance where they run for over 200 yards and they throw for over 200 yards, good luck trying to slow them down.
You may not think the Ravens are the best team in the NFL, but is Lamar Jackson the best player in the NFL right now, Nick?
I don't think he's the best player in the league. He's not the guy that if everyone were available, he would be my number 1 pick. I think Mahomes would be ahead of him. I think Russell Wilson, because even though he's older, he still has so much football ahead of him, would be ahead of him. Deshaun Watson, last night notwithstanding, or yesterday afternoon notwithstanding, might still be ahead of him. But that's not the question you're asking. To me, the question is who's playing the best right now, right? So these are 2 different questions. This is almost like college football playoff. Like, is Alabama the best team? I don't know, but did they have the best season? Do they deserve to be in the playoff? With Lamar, the only person in football who can argue he's playing as well as Lamar is Russell Wilson. So is he the best player in football? Probably not. Is he having the best season of anyone in football? It's either him or Russell Wilson, and I will not accept another answer. Like, I hope you have one of those 2 answers, but I think, to me, I think there's only 2 viable candidates right now for, in 2019, who has been the best player in the league, Lamar or Russell Wilson. To me, it's clearly one of those 2 guys.
Yeah, I don't think there's a wrong answer when it comes down to those 2 guys, but I would probably say that Lamar Jackson is the most outstanding offensive player, but Russell Wilson is the MVP, because I don't believe there's a player in the league that means more to his team than Russell Wilson. I just feel like Lamar Jackson is surrounded with a better supporting cast, whereas Russell Wilson has to shoulder more of the responsibility for not just his offense, but his team overall being able to win games.
All right, speaking of Lamar, time now for Put a Grade on It, sponsored by CarMax. Lamar with another game with 300 total yards, 4 touchdowns. So, Nick Wright, put a grade on Lamar's performance yesterday.
It's another A+. I mean, he's racking them up over the course of the season. He outdid what he did against New England. He now, in the last month, has played Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, beating him. Tom Brady and the Patriots beating him. And now Deshaun Watson and the Texans beating him. I give Lamar an A+.
I'm going to give him an A. I can't give him an A+ because I don't think enough was on the line in yesterday's game to go ahead and give him that nod. I usually reserve A+ for being able to clinch your division, clinch a playoff spot, or winning a playoff game. But Lamar Jackson was exceptional. At one point in that game, had 13 straight completions. I mean, he had 3 of his 4 touchdown passes come from within the pocket. So that can dismiss that myth that he's not just a dual threat quarterback, but he's actually a guy that can win playing from the well. But Lamar Jackson was outstanding yesterday.
An enormous amount, though, on the line for the Texans. They were trying to get the first bye in the history of their franchise. That now they can wave bye to that because they got no shot at it. Did you know that as many as 7 out of 10 adults wished they played a musical instrument? Unfortunately, many never do because they think it's either too late for them to start or too expensive. Musician is an online music education platform rethinking the way people learn music. It's the fun, easy, and affordable way to learn guitar, piano, bass, ukulele, or even learn to sing. Just download the app to your desktop, tablet, or phone and start playing. Musician is perfect whether you're just starting out or have been playing for years. Enjoy thousands of popular songs, expertly crafted lessons and exercises across dozens of genres. Compared to private lessons, Musician is more affordable, lets you learn on your own schedule. You'll get bite-sized lessons, easy to follow instructions, and exercises tailored to your goals. Using Musician to learn an instrument like guitar or piano is much better than trying to teach yourself. So, if you've been wanting to learn an instrument or simply want some help getting back to playing, check out Musician. You can get an extended 14-day free trial of their premium package at musician.com/play. That's unlimited lessons and unlimited songs on as many instruments as you want for 2 whole weeks. Just go to musician.com/play to start your free trial today. That's YOUSICIAN.com/play.
Moving on, Colin Kaepernick finally had his big workout for NFL teams, at least some of them. Cap hasn't played an actual NFL game since January 1st, 2017. That is 1,051 days ago. On Saturday, he worked out in front of 8 NFL team representatives at an Atlanta area high school. This was after canceling the workout in front of 25 team reps at the Falcons practice facility when he and the NFL couldn't agree on parameters for the workout. Here's Kaepernick after his workout on Saturday.
We're out here, we're ready to play. We're ready to go anywhere. My agent, Jeff Nally, is ready to talk to any team. I'll interview with any team at any time. I've been ready, I'm staying ready, and I'll continue to be ready.
Kenny, what was your reaction to everything that happened this weekend?
I thought it was a bad look for all involved. It amounted to a PR stunt for both sides. It wasn't about trying to get Kaepernick a fair and equitable opportunity for employment. It was about both sides trying to protect their own interests. I thought they all had ulterior motives from the NFL's perspective. They're trying to protect against any liability and future litigation brought against them by Colin Kaepernick, you know, in defense of their position and him not having a job. What they're worried about is Cap dragging them back into court and saying that, you know what, because they had to settle the initial suit, they're retaliating against me by not giving me an opportunity to play when I'm clearly one of the best 100 quarterbacks in the world. From Kaepernick's standpoint, that's what he's trying to protect. That's why he didn't sign the waiver that the NFL had for him. I think they had some language in there that included some employment-related issues as well as the health waiver for the workout that he was scheduled to have, which is why he changed the location and made it 45 minutes away from the Atlanta Falcons facility, where only 8 of the 25 scouts that were supposed to come down and watch him were able to actually get a look at him. But, I mean, from Kaepernick's standpoint, I think he's more interested in being a martyr than actually being out there on the football field, because there are a couple of things in here that are hard to explain. First of all, the logistics of it. If you know that the NFL is going to have you sign a waiver, try to get that information earlier so that if there is some disagreement, that you can make an adjustment and you actually have time, and the scouts that actually do want to come see you have an opportunity to do it. Changing it the day of, I mean, that's a tough ask when all of these people are adjusting their schedules just to come and see you. And then showing up to that workout in a Kunta Kinte shirt, to me, it didn't seem like Cap was as concerned about putting his best foot forward for NFL teams. I think he was more concerned with sending a message.
Well, he certainly is not going to sacrifice any of his principles in order to get back in football. He's made that clear. And I think that is one of the things that makes him so admirable, but it also has been one of the things that has kept him out of the league. That's obviously the case. From kneeling to everything since then, he has put principles ahead of profession at every stance, and to me, that's very, very honorable. But there are 2 major points on this, to me, that are more important than all of the other noise combined. And the first one is what we saw in that video and what the anonymous NFL exec who was quoted on this said. Colin Kaepernick still obviously can play. And if we want this to not be about politics, not to be about social justice, not to be about ulterior motives, can he play should trump everything else. because I'm certain if it were in the other direction, it would. If all of the, quote, distractions, unquote, were removed, and he wasn't wearing the T-shirt and he worked out, but he's throwing the ball into the dirt, then none of it matters. Despite the fact that he still clearly can play, there is still speculation in the hours and days since this has happened. Well, how much does he want it? Well, he wants it badly enough. How long has it been since he played, Jenna? 1,051 days?
That's it.
He wants it badly enough that he has worked out 5 or 6 days a week, every week since then. He wants it badly enough that he has stayed in shape for this moment. Being able to throw a football like that and practicing that has no effective use in the real world aside from playing professional football. So he wants it badly enough to keep his skill level high enough if the opportunity ever were to arise. And that should be all that matters, if we're being honest here. But it clearly isn't, which brings me to the second point here. Why does the onus continue to be put on the wronged party in this to decide, okay, I'll relent on this. You guys want me to sign a waiver that is not the traditional waiver. You want, instead of the traditional injury waiver, you want me to sign a waiver that gives away some of my rights. Well, I want to get back in football so badly, I'll do it. You want me to disallow the media from attending. I'm very curious what the narrative would have been if this whole thing got scotched because the NFL said, we want the media in. And Cap said, no, can't have the media in, can't live stream it, can't broadcast it. I feel like people would say, well, Cap has something to hide. But because the other point that Cap says he did not agree was the waiver and the lack of media access. Cap wanted the entire world to be able to see it, so there could be no, well, his arm is not what it once was. And I know some will say, well, if Colin desperately wants to get back in football, he should do anything it takes to get back in football. I would argue, if the NFL wants to show they have not blackballed a player, they should not add language to a waiver that you know could be problematic and have an issue with open and fair media access. To me, those are two very obvious points. And so, is Colin Kaepernick doing everything in his power to get back in pro football? No, because he has made it clear from the beginning that his principles are going to be more important than anything else. But he is doing everything in his power to be ready if teams will move past their issue with his principles on this. And he showed that yesterday. And yet, once again, it's not about is he good enough to play football. It's about all the other things, which for the keep your politics out of my sports crowd, I would ask, well, isn't that inserting politics into sports if we are depriving the right to work, one of, you said 100, clearly 100, and almost certainly one of the 45 best quarterbacks alive?
No question about it, but here's the thing that I can't get past. Now, you're absolutely right. This is not about the NFL trying to give him a fair opportunity, because if they wanted to, this would have happened years ago, not in the middle of week 10 and 11 in the 2019 season when he hadn't played since, 2016?
Right.
So we're talking about a situation where clearly the NFL has an agenda, but my only issue with Cap is you have to know that they want you to sign a waiver before you work out. Why wouldn't you try to get your representation to get a copy of that sooner rather than later, so any type of disagreements that you and the NFL might have, you could potentially get those worked out ahead of Saturday's workout.
Why
to
does
actually
the venue
change
change
this,
have to happen an
to
hour
change it the
before
day
the workout?
of is just unrealistic in terms of being able to expect everybody that was supposed to attend the workout at the Falcons facility to then shift course and go 30 miles away to another facility in Atlanta.
But why is the onus on the party who's been wronged?
Because the party who's been wronged wants desperately to be in the NFL. He wants to be in the NFL. So aren't you better off showcasing your skills? And if you have to swallow some pride, if that's really where you want to be, in front of 25 teams as opposed to in front of 8 teams?
I just want to be clear. What we're saying is, because I think everyone at the table recognizes, whether it was, direct or indirect, Colin Kaepernick's been unfairly denied employment over 3 years.
Yep.
So what we are asking him, when the NFL the night before presents him with a waiver with very curious language inserted in it and says no media allowed, the only people who are going to be there are going to be NFL folks and your folks. Just trust us, though. Just trust us. We won't use this waiver against you. And just trust us that we won't all of a sudden, through our various media arms, leak, you looked terrible. That is a hell of an ask. It is an immense ask that just trust us on this, Colin. Even though for 3 years, you haven't been given a chance. Trust us that this one will be on the up and up, even though the night before it's not on the up and up, because we had language to a waiver that seems like it is not about injury, but more about litigation.
Well, here's the thing, Nick. I don't think you're wrong, but I also go back to the NFL and having a job in the National Football League being a privilege and not a right. And so Colin Kaepernick, yeah, even though it might not necessarily be fair to him that the NFL is asking him to go through all of these hoops and they've set up this workout, in a sense where it doesn't make any sense based on where they're at in the calendar. I mean, you still have to try to do everything you can with that opportunity that they are presenting you, and you have to try to get ahead of as much of this stuff as you possibly can before the actual workout is scheduled to take place. Now, I don't think it's a tough ask for Colin Kaepernick to show up not wearing a Kunta Kinte shirt. That's indefensible to me. It's inexplicable to wear a shirt that's referencing, a fictional account from Roots and talking about that, likening what happened to you to slavery. I just think that that's a bridge too far if you're Colin Kaepernick in terms of the messaging that you're sending to everyone that is watching your workout.
Look, I think you're both right, and note side one in all of this. I don't think you can come out and say the NFL looked great, and I don't think you can come out and say Colin Kaepernick did what he wanted to do this weekend. I think Colin Kaepernick deserved a bigger audience than just 8 teams, and I think the NFL will walk away saying, well, we tried to do that, and we're not going to we're going to throw all our chips in, and Cap's doesn't want to throw all his chips in, and in trying to placate both sides, or maybe not, I think you both walk away from this perhaps in the same place that you were beforehand. I don't know if Kaepernick is any closer to being signed by a team after this weekend.
Let me say this, though, Jenna. I think that there was a little bit of fault on both sides here in terms of how this entire thing played out, but I probably place more blame on the NFL because they set up this entire fiasco. This was a farce. This wasn't about giving Colin Kaepernick a fair opportunity. This was about them trying to protect their interests and avoid any liability that they would have if Colin Kaepernick were to drag them back to court.
If Colin Kaepernick looked terrible Saturday, it would be the only thing that mattered. He looked great, so now it's about where the workout was, the t-shirt he wore, and whether or not he wants it badly enough, even though the only way he can look great is by, for 3 years, quietly with no television cameras, working out damn near every single day. And so the only thing I'll disagree with is I don't think this worked out poorly for the league. I think this worked out probably just about the way it wanted to, because now all of a sudden the scrutiny is on Cap, and the reason why the aggrieved party, the person who's had employment denied from him, it's his fault he's not in football when it's never been that.
All right, moving on. Tom Brady and Carson Wentz facing off for the first time. Remember, it was Nick Foles in that Super Bowl 52.
Oh, yeah.
After a flat first half, second half saw this. Brady to Julian Edelman. Edelman to Philip Dorsett. Dorsett for the touchdown. 15 yards. They needed some trickery, but they got it. 17-10 Pats. Just over a minute left in the game. It was 4th and 10. Patriots territory. Carson Wentz looking for Nelson Aguilar, but he drops the crucial pass. So one last chance for the Eagles. Wentz is just going to heave it, launches the Hail Mary. It will drop. Incomplete. Patriots hold on to clinch their 19th straight winning season. This wasn't an easy win for them, but it was still a win. It was such a frustrating game for the fans to watch. You can only imagine how it must have been for Tom Brady. Could not get anything going. How good are the Patriots, Nick?
The Patriots defense continues to be the single best unit in football. Better than the Lamar Jackson-led Ravens offense, better than the Niners defense, pick your favorite, better than the Chiefs with a healthy Patrick Mahomes offense. The Patriots defense is the single best unit in football and showed it again yesterday. After there were some questions approaching, well, they were so unbelievable through 8 weeks, but then they played a real quarterback in Lamar. The Ravens were so successful. Is this defense just really good, or is it one of the best defenses we've seen in the last decade? No, it's the latter, not the former. They allowed one sustained drive, that 95-yard drive, which was something like the longest drive the Patriots have allowed in almost a decade. Just cartoonish numbers, like the 19 straight winning seasons.
Right.
Nobody in football has a streak longer than 7, except for the Patriots, who are at 19. The defense is as good as advertised, and it has to be, because the reason Brady is so frustrated is because he knew going into this game the offense had to get it going. They had one touchdown in the game, and it was thrown. It was also the best ball thrown all game, and it was by the wide receiver out of Kansas State.
It was ruled a turnover initially.
Right. Well, and so like it's unbelievable. It's not unbelievable, pardon me. It's understandable is what I meant to say, that Brady would be frustrated because he knows the win is what matters more than anything. He also knows this offense is going to have to kick it into gear come the postseason, and that if they don't kick it in gear over the next 3 weeks, they might actually have to play a road postseason game because the Ravens keep nipping at their heels. So the defense, A triple plus again. Offense, a lot what it's looked like to me all year long.
Yeah, the offense is a work in progress, and they're expecting to get some guys back. N'Keal Harry was actually on the field, so we got a chance to look at their first-round pick this year with Mohamed Sanu and Julian Edelman. I think that they will figure things out as this goes along, but the thing that saved the Patriots throughout the course of this season is that their defense is keeping games close. And they're making just enough plays. And you saw it at the end of the first half in that game. Now, the defense didn't start great. They gave up the DPI by Jason McCourty, which ended up leading to a field goal. And then on the next drive, it was a big screen pass to Dallas Goedert, and then Dallas Goedert on the touchdown, which was initially ruled a turnover. Yeah. But the fact is they actually scored. But, I mean, the Patriots went down by double digits, and that was the last time that the Eagles scored any points in that ball game. So their defense gave that offense an opportunity to figure it out. And then if you look at the end of half, end of game, there are very few teams that are as good as the Patriots, because you looked at what happened. Their second red zone possession, Rodney McLeod misses an opportunity to get an interception. The Patriots put a field goal on the board. Then they come back and they get the strip sack, and then they put another field goal on the board. You're talking about a situation where it could have been 13-6 at halftime. Instead, ends up being 10-9, and then the Patriots come out and march down the field on that first possession and score a touchdown, and that was all that you saw from the game. So when you look at situational football, because the Patriots are so good and they play complementary in that regard, they're going to be a tough team to beat, even though the offense hasn't figured things out.
But this offense feels like it's piecemealing itself together week by week. Like over the course of the game, it's just constantly sputtering to get itself to the end of the game. And my gosh, you look at Tom Brady and you know he's the greatest player of all time. You don't see any part of that. You see balls he's throwing away. He's got no time to do anything.
Because he's not very good right now.
Well, that's my question. Is he not very good right now?
No. Clearly and obviously, it is no longer a small sample size, and maybe come the postseason, Brady will find a way, as the all-time greats sometimes do, Kareem, late in his career, when he was no longer six-time MVP Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, still, the Lakers, in a do-or-die game in the NBA Finals, ran the final play of the game for him. He got fouled. The Pistons stayed in and hit the 2 free throws. You can, to help win a championship. Sometimes all-time greats, even when they're cooked, can channel all-time great moments for moments in the postseason. But over the course of a game in the regular season, Tom Brady is a below-average NFL quarterback right now. Those are just, we got 10 games a sample. I don't know what more people need to see. We haven't done one of these in a while. Okay, let's do a blind reveal real quick. The left is Tom Brady. The right-hand side, the guy who hasn't beat in everything but completion percentage, and it's just barely below in completion percentage. Who is it? Let me see. Oh, it's Gardner Minshew, who the Jags could not wait to get Nick Foles back to take that job away from. Right now, Tom Brady has the 22nd best passer rating in football. That's behind Marcus Mariota. He has 14 touchdown passes. That's behind Daniel Jones. He's 6.8 yards per attempt. That is 26th in football. That's behind Josh Allen. And his completion percentage is behind the benched Joe Flacco. 2 of those quarterbacks have been benched. 2 of those quarterbacks are young guys who are in their first or second year and figuring things out. Like, it's a great win for the Patriots yesterday, Canty. I picked them to lose, right? I thought they would lose because I thought they would struggle to break 20 points. Their defense once again rose to the task and was spectacular, so credit to them for that. But I don't think N'Keal Harry or Isaiah Wynn are, and I'm not saying you're saying this,
and Wynn didn't play,
but N'Keal Harry came back. Wynn will come back. I don't think those guys are going to turn around what has been the worst year we've seen from Tom Brady. It's now approaching ever. Certainly in the last 15 years.
Well, here's the problem with the Patriots offense. There is no explosive down-the-field threat for that team. The explosion that they're looking for from the skill position core is coming from their running backs out of the backfield, and so that's just not enough. You saw them yesterday utilize a lot of screen passes just because they don't have anybody that can be that game breaker in terms of making somebody miss in open spaces. So that's something that's going to be a work in progress. I don't know if they're going to develop that kind of threat, but I think that this offense is trying to find its identity, and within that, it has to be a big part, the run game and being able to control the line of scrimmage. That's why I think people are making such a big deal about Isaiah Wynn potentially coming back, because he's going to make that offensive line better.
But when you call this offense a work in progress, or they got to figure it out, or they need to find their identity, when? I mean, we're in week 10, week 11. Well, they're not getting anything new except maybe another left tackle. I don't know when this is supposed to happen, that they're suddenly going to flip a switch and we're going to see vintage Patriots offense again.
Well, I mean, we saw this last year when they morphed into an offense
that
had...
bad.
No, it wasn't this bad, not to this degree, but we saw this last year, and at the end of November, early December, they started figuring it out in terms of having a two-back set with a tight end in place, and they were running the football with old-school runs, power schemes, gap blocking. I just think that the Patriots, they'll find a way to be able to adjust, because they always do. And so I'm not giving them a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'm just basing what I think will happen off of what we've seen Bill Belichick do for 19 straight years. So I look at this Patriots team. They did what they needed to do coming off of a bye, keeping pace with the Baltimore Ravens to keep that top overall seed in the AFC. And that defense, because they're so good, they're giving that offense an opportunity to figure it out.
2 years ago, Tom Brady won the league MVP. It was shocking to me. It was a guy's 40 years old, wins the league MVP. Last year, the team had their worst record they had had in a decade, and he had his worst season they have had in a decade. This year, he is worse across the board. And you can be the greatest of all time and not still be the greatest of this time. And that is where we're at with Brady. And the problem is, last year they got by with the running game, and with Brady, okay, so he wasn't the greatest quarterback in football. He was like 8th or 9th. This year, he's statistically 18th or 19th. And that defense is going to have to be like 02 Bucks, 2000 Ravens if he doesn't tick it up come the postseason.
All right, so let's talk about the team that they beat, the Philadelphia Eagles. I almost wonder, could the Eagles have won that game and taken more advantage of what the Patriots weren't giving you on offense? Their defense played great. Where do you place the blame for this Philadelphia Eagles team?
Well, anytime you have a team as talented as the Eagles but inconsistent, you have to look at coaching. So Doug Peterson is at the forefront of any criticism that I would have for the Eagles. There were a couple of game management issues that came up, like they had a possession right before halftime where they have 2nd and 2 on the cusp of field goal range, and then they take 2 sacks. I think one was because of a bad sack.
Killer.
Exactly, which is a killer. I mean, that's an opportunity.
And the possession before
that's an opportunity to put 3 points on the board, but then the possession before that, you had a strip sack, and then Lawrence Guy recovers the fumble. So those 2 plays at the end of the 4th quarter, you had a situation where you don't field the punt, and you allow 5 seconds to run off of the clock. That's overall game management. You don't get a playoff before the 2-minute warning. Inexcusable. So all of those things, to me, point to the head coach not having an attention to detail that his team needs in order to compete, especially with the better teams in the NFL.
And right now, I can't believe I'm saying it, but right now the Dak Wentz debate, which to me at the beginning of the year was not a debate because Carson Wentz was so far ahead, now is not a debate because right now you got one quarterback in the NFC East that looks like a top 7, top 8 quarterback in football at least. Another quarterback who is playing the worst football he's played since his rookie season by a wide margin. I understand they have no wide receiver speed, and I understand that Lane Johnson went out they were up 10-0 when Lane Johnson was in. He goes out, they don't score again. We know his passer rating drops 20 points with Lane Johnson not on the field. But come on, and I also get that pass to Aguilar was an excellent pass.
Yeah,
he actually delivered that one.
That was a great ball.
But over the course of the season, he's 27th in completion percentage and 31st in yards per attempt. Like Carson Wentz, we can put it on the complimenting pieces, but he got paid this offseason like he's the quarterback that I've been saying he is, which is a future superstar, a guy who will duplicate his near MVP campaign he had a couple years ago before he got hurt, and he's been nothing close to it. And we overestimated their talent, Jenna, and so they don't have enough outlying talent to overcome their quarterback playing the worst football he's played in 3 years.
And now the Philadelphia Eagles are looking up at the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC East as a result of that loss. Back here, first things first, we are now joined by Super Bowl champ Greg Jennings. Good morning, Greg.
It's been a long time, bro.
Welcome.
Good to see you, man.
Have we not seen you this football season yet?
No, we've seen him this football season, but it's just been a while.
That is the worst thing I could have said. I was just trying to be part of the conversation, and now I take it back. I just want to be against the conversation.
Let's do it again. Good to see you, brother.
It is great to have you back.
She's having a CTE moment.
Great having you here throughout the football season, which is when you've been here. Let's talk some Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, Greg, quickly before I say other things. In Detroit, they were to face the Lions, and Dak was outstanding in this one. Dak Prescott throwing for 444 yards, 3 touchdowns. Get this, he now leads the NFL in passing yards on the season. He also helped the Cowboys get the win in a pivotal NFC matchup. Here's Ezekiel Elliott talking about his quarterback after the game.
Dak's playing the best football I've ever seen him play. It's definitely took his game to a next level. Just the things he's been able to do. Something's clicking there. He's throwing out the ball, and we got a bunch of weapons on the outside that he can throw it to, and it's hard for defense to stop him. So keep that thing rolling.
Can anyone, Nick, beat the Cowboys when Dak plays like this?
Well, yeah, the Lions damn near beat them, and Dak played like this.
Actually, didn't Dak play like this last week, too?
Dak was sensational last week. And so, listen, these to me are two different conversations. One is Dak Prescott taking his game to a level I did not think was within him. Coming into this season, he had 5 career games of 300 yards passing. Only 2 career games of 350 yards passing. This year, he's got a 397, a 405, a 444, and a 463. He's 3 yards away from having 4 400-yard games. They've only played 10. So, Dak had to play this well yesterday, though, because the defense wasn't very good, Greg. Zeke had what I believe to be the worst back-to-back games of his career. From his ineffectiveness last week that led to the loss to the fumble early in this game and ineffectiveness this week. So what the story last night was when Dak plays this well, the Cowboys are unbeatable. To me, the story was Dak had to play an A-level game or the Cowboys would have gotten beat, and he did it, and credit to him, because I've been a skeptic of Dak Prescott for the last 2.5 years, and this year, at nearly every turn, he's been proving me wrong.
That's what's a little frightening if I'm the Dallas Cowboys. The fact that Dak Prescott is playing the way he is every showing, and the question being, can the Cowboys be beat, or who can beat the Cowboys? Well, they can beat themselves. The Minnesota Vikings beat them last week.
And he played this
way. And he played excellent. He played pretty good against the Green Bay Packers, throwing the 3 interceptions, but he threw over 400 yards, and the Green Bay Packers beat him. So when you're talking about the elites of the elites in the NFC, we're not even getting to the AFC. The Dallas Cowboys can be beat, and they do it by beating themselves. When you look at this defense, they have all the talent across the board, but it seems like they can't put it together. They can't stop guys. They can't stop opposing opponents' offenses when they need to. When their offense is putting up points, their defense turns around and they allowed another offense to put up points as well. You mentioned it. Ezekiel Elliott just has not been what we've seen him to be in the past in the running game. The one thing that I have noticed is that when they pass the ball the way that they've been passing the ball, Jason Witten, he's not getting a lot of targets, but he's a huge part of why they're having this success, because they can bring in that 11 personnel, that one tight end set. He can stay in and protect, and they have 6-7 guys blocking and protection, which we've seen them struggle with pass pro in the past with Dak Prescott. This year, they're protecting him, and he's able to run and have those guys on the perimeter. And Michael Gallup and Randall Cobb and all those guys are making plays.
No, there were big days by Michael Gallup and Randall Cobb, both receivers going over 100 yards. But I think you hit the nail on the head when you brought up the defense. You let the Jeff Driscoll-led Lions offense put up 27 points on you. Dallas Cowboys allowed that offense to be 3 for 3 in the red zone and 6 of 13 on third down. So you allowed them to sustain drives with a backup quarterback. That part of it for me is inexcusable. But Jenna, to answer your question, yeah, Dak Prescott playing that way is going to give you a chance, but he's been playing that way the last 4 games. I mean, the Cowboys have won 3 of their last 4, and Dak has accounted for 10 touchdowns to only 3 interceptions. So if your quarterback is accounting for multiple touchdowns, you're always going to have a chance. But for me, it's about the Dallas Cowboys starting slow. I mean, this is the seventh game that they've given up the first points in the game. So, I mean, last week we saw them go down to the Minnesota Vikings by 14 points. I mean, when you're going up against better competition, you can't afford to start slow. You don't have that same margin for error. When we've seen it with the Dallas Cowboys, whether it's the Green Bay Packers, whether it's the Minnesota Vikings, when they get behind early, it's going to be tough for them to come back in those games. So for me, that's the thing that Jason Garrett has got to figure out. How can I get this team to start faster?
Go ahead, Greg.
No, I was going to say, you mentioned something about Dak Prescott and you not expecting him to play like this. I don't think any of us saw this. I felt like he was going to have a good year because of the pieces that they had placed around him. But this offense, it's all about Dak Prescott. Where we once were saying it's a run-first offense, all about Ezekiel Elliott, it is no longer that. This is Dak Prescott. If Dak Prescott, could you imagine the Dallas Cowboys if Dak Prescott was not playing like this?
No, they'd be cooked.
They wouldn't even be in playoff contention right now.
And this is, if you were to tell me Dak was going to have a spectacular season, what I would have thought what that means is statistically, he's giving you about 230 yards per game passing, but he's not turning the ball over at all. He's making a few big plays with his legs. He's doing what he did his rookie season, just on a higher level. But that's not it at all. The only thing Dak's done poorly this year is he is turning the ball over. He has made up for it because his deep downfield passing has been trumped this year. I can't believe I'm saying this, but only by Patrick Mahomes. Dak Prescott is averaging 321 yards per game. That is second in the league to Patrick Mahomes. To me, a very important quarterback stat, yards per attempt, because it gives you an idea. Are you dinking and dunking? Are you taking things downfield? I mentioned
this, yes.
He's at 8.8 yards per attempt, a super elite number. Second in the league, only 2. Patrick Mahomes. It is the reason he doesn't have the full Mahomes statistical profile this year is he has 9 interceptions. I think Mahomes has 1. But I can't believe I'm saying these things, but I have to be fair. And even if I didn't see it coming, Dak is becoming a don't worry, get on my back, I got it type of quarterback, which I didn't think was in the cards.
Are the Ravens now the best team in the NFL?
To me, they're clearly the best team in the AFC, and they are in that very top tier, along with the 2 teams I consider the best teams in the NFC, the Packers and the Saints. I think right now that is it's a triangle of there are some things that the Ravens do better than the Packers do better than the Saints, but the Saints do better than the Ravens, if that makes sense. So I think it's a question of matchups there, but they are they are the favorites to me right now in the AFC. They are right now, I believe, the favorites to get the 1 seed in the AFC because I don't think the Patriots are done losing this year, especially with the offense the way it is. And so it is not just about Lamar, but so much of it is about Lamar Jackson. This was a team that was below 500. Same roster for the most part. They added Ingram. They made some nice additions, as they always do in Baltimore, formerly Ozzie Newsome, now Eric DeCosta. But they were 4-5 with Joe Flacco. Since then, they are 14-3. With Lamar Jackson. He is the difference maker. And that press conference, Greg, to me is not nothing. Because this was what I always thought was so unfair, and I think is unfair, when a lot of the evaluation of quarterbacks similar to Lamar, the question was, well, is he going to be able to communicate in the huddle? How much of a leader is he? All these dog whistle things we hear. Well, there is the flip side to it, which is Lamar might not communicate in the interview room as well as some of the other quarterbacks. But I damn sure bet in the huddle and in the locker room, he might communicate and connect better than a lot of these other quarterbacks. And we don't always say that because it's a little uncomfortable and people get a little uneasy about it. But that team adores him. That team loves him, and that team wants him to succeed. And you can say that's true about all young quarterbacks, but it's not always true. Sometimes the young star quarterback is, you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but is set aside from the team. That he gets special treatment, he gets special privileges, he gets more opportunities than other guys otherwise would in order to keep their job. And with Lamar, you can see a veteran like Mark Ingram so happy for his success, and of course, the fact that the team's 14-3 since he's taken over only helps that.
Yeah, for me, they're the outright best team in the National Football League right now. AFC, NFC, it doesn't matter. I feel like if you match them up on each side of the ball, all three phases, they will beat you. Any team you put out against them, their only two losses were to the Browns early in the season, to the Chiefs early in the season. And if you play those two teams right now today, I doubt that they would lose those games. And then you mentioned it not being solely about Lamar Jackson. I get it, it's a team game. Mm-hmm. This is about Lamar Jackson. Clearly, with them 14-3 since he's taken over at the quarterback position, his ability to just change the landscape of not only your team, your organization, how you move forward with him at quarterback. He says so much about, number one, Ozzie Newsome and what he saw outside of just football, because you also mentioned his ability to communicate, not just in front of cameras, not to media, but to the guys in the locker room. Everyone at Louisville loved him. He had everyone in his grasp, listening to him, echoing everything that he said. He's doing the same thing with the Baltimore Ravens, and it's infectious. This is why that team is winning, because of Lamar Jackson. They're the outright best team in the NFL right now. They beat the New England Patriots, who's the best team, who has the best record in the AFC, and I believe that they would beat anyone in the NFC.
Well, here's the thing, and I know Nick, you don't like to put a lot of stock in the quarterback record, but I do think it's relevant because you have seen a shift in this team in terms of how they're trying to play and how they're trying to win games. And a lot of it is oriented around their quarterback, especially in the running game. It's hard to account for the quarterback as the lead runner, but that's why Lamar Jackson is in the top 10 in rushing, just because defenses haven't been able to figure it out. But the thing that makes this offense challenging is the development that Lamar Jackson has made as a passer from the pocket. I talked about it a little bit earlier, but 3 of his 4 touchdown passes were from the pocket yesterday. So when you have your quarterback operating with that level of efficiency in the passing game from the well, like you're always going to be tough to defend. So yeah, the Baltimore Ravens, the statistics that we've seen being the #1 scoring offense in the NFL, that's not smoke and mirrors. That's the reality of who this team is. And credit to John Harbaugh and Ozzie Newsome and Eric DeCosta for having the conviction to roll with Lamar Jackson and turn over the keys to the franchise to him. But I think something that's the perfect example to reiterate Nick's point about how Lamar Jackson communicates with his teammates is what he said last year when he took over the team. And they got to win, and they asked Lamar Jackson, how does it feel knowing that this team is now your team? And I thought he had a brilliant response.
Yes.
He said, it's not my team, it's our team. And we decide collectively what kind of season we're going to have. When your quarterback, which is a leadership position by nature, has that type of mentality, that bodes well in terms of the team's overall success.
Do you remember the narrative when Lamar Jackson first joined the Baltimore Ravens? We talked about whether they were going to try to change his game, whether he was ever going to be a really good pocket passer, whether he was susceptible to getting hurt with all the running. And yet he went out in the offseason, he put on 20 pounds of muscle. He really obviously worked on his throwing game and his accuracy. He's almost a different player this year. Is he the best player in the NFL right now?
there's only one player in the league this year who's playing as well as him. It's Russell Wilson. So, like, if that makes you the best player, then the answer is yes. If best player is more of a hypothetical conversation, if you were starting a franchise with anyone, who would you pick? I'd still take Mahomes over him. I still think Russell Wilson and maybe even Deshaun Watson. I love Deshaun, and Deshaun, to me, is doing it under far more difficult circumstances because of teammates and coaches, most notably, in Houston compared to Baltimore. But, Jenna, your point, so, yeah, I mean, he's top 2. He's playing as well as anyone other than Russell, and some could argue better than Russell. But your point about the narrative about him when he got to the team, hell, the narrative about him after the playoff game.
Yes.
I mean, Peter King wrote about this morning about how devastating that was for him. That the fans in Baltimore, after the season he had, wanted Flacco inserted in the game, and Harbaugh wouldn't do it. And credit to Harbaugh, because even when that game was out of reach, Lamar in the final 10 minutes got it together a bit. They were never going to win, but he at least, I mean, he had a 0.0 passer rating through the first 50 minutes of that football game. He still had immense ways to go 10 games ago. See, the last time, and instead of having that moment be a can I do it moment, it was a moment where all he did was work on those things, and he's still not a finished product. And he's still going to have, peaks and valleys. But to see that, to me, is spectacular, because I know there are a lot of people going into this year that didn't like Baltimore because they thought the Chargers revealed the secret. That everyone was going to do what the Chargers did, play 7 defensive backs, make him throw the football, and then he hung a perfect passer rating on Miami to start the season, and it changed the narrative on him.
Yeah. We talk about Dak Prescott being surprised what he's done. Lamar Jackson, I am more than anyone I doubt more than anyone, surprised because his ability to take all this information, have an offseason, put on weight, throw the ball, and become more accurate, and just become a student of the game from a quarterbacking perspective, it speaks volumes about him.
I don't know about that football stuff. I can put on weight very easily in an off-season. I don't even know why that's such a big deal. Greg, who's to blame for the Eagles' struggles?
Look, I mean, you got to start with the Eagles' injuries first and foremost. They've been plagued from the onset. At the beginning of the season, they were without guys right out the gate. And it just hasn't.
Deshaun Jackson gets injured.
What about all the depth they had? This was the deepest team coming into the season.
It was the deepest teams until the injuries continued to pile on. But beyond the injuries, when you look at this defense, they've been inconsistent. You look at this offense, you talk about Dallas starting slow. They've started slow. They've gotten behind. They haven't been able to run the ball. RPOs were their what they hung their hat on the last couple years. They just haven't been able to establish the run to even get linebackers to even believe that they're going to run the ball so the passing game gets open. And then they have drop passes. We saw Aguilar in another drop pass there. It's just, everybody has a hand in why the Eagles have not had success this year.
But it's so frustrating, and it's got to be so disappointing for them, because the one spot the Patriots defense can be had is its run defense. Mm-hmm. The spot the Eagles had been the best the past couple weeks was the running offense. And yet, if you take away Carson Wentz's scrambles, they had 18 carries from running backs for a combined 54 yards. That's less than 4 yards per carry, with a long of 12 yards. Miles Sanders, 11 carries with a long of 7 yards. That's where you have to take advantage of New England, especially a game that you're up 10-0. You're up going into the half. The Patriots, it's not like you were ever in a situation where you had to abandon the run. You could have stayed committed to the run the entire game. Instead, they stayed committed to a passing attack that was ineffective. That there was a turnover forced on it right before the half, which you can't have against New England with Wentz's lack of ball security. Wentz was under duress the entire game. Canty, you knew that New England wanted the Philadelphia Eagles offense to come into the game and throw the football around.
Yep.
And Philadelphia did exactly that, which played right in New England's hands. There's no shame in losing to the Patriots, but But and I was wrong, by the way. I picked the Eagles to win this game. One of the reasons I picked the Eagles to win this game is I thought New England would struggle to get to 20 points against Philly. They did, and Philly still couldn't make them pay for it. It's just a killer for them, especially because they have Seattle next week.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the part of betting on the Philadelphia Eagles knowing that the Patriots are coming off of a bye week, just because we know Bill Belichick is really good when he has extra time to prepare. But when these two teams matched up in Super Bowl 52, we were asking ourselves, well, how did the Philadelphia Eagles survive losing their quarterback who was playing at an MVP type of level? And it was about their offensive line and their defensive line. Their big people being better than everybody else's big people, that's what gave them a chance to compete at that high of a level. Yesterday, that wasn't the case. Like you were talking about being able to dominate the front seven of the New England Patriots in the run game, and the offensive line for the Eagles, they weren't able to do that. Now, Lane Johnson did go out with the concussion, and that was a huge loss. We know that he makes a big difference when he's in the lineup as opposed to not being in the lineup.
They're up 10-0 when he goes
They're
out.
up 10-0 in that game. But still, your inability to be able to run the ball, that part about it was probably the most surprising for me, and Doug Peterson just completely getting away from it altogether, recognizing that they weren't having the success per attempt. Now, I get it, no Jordan Howard, Miles Sanders a little bit nicked up. They had to go out there and sign Jay Ajayi. That just tells you about the depth that team has, or lack thereof, at the position. But still, you've got to be able to figure out a way to give Carson Wentz more balance, because you're talking about a quarterback that has struggled to stay healthy. When you're going up against a Patriots defense and you're one-dimensional, Bill Belichick is going to scheme up ways to be able to hit your quarterback. That's exactly what happened yesterday, and Doug Peterson didn't have any answers for it.
The question coming into this season with the Eagles is the exact same one we have coming out of this loss to the Patriots. Who are the Eagles? We don't really know who they are, and we've been 10, 11 weeks into the season, and we kind of still don't know who they are. Are they a passing team with Carson Wentz? Is this the same Carson Wentz of old? Are they a running team now? Is this just a defense-dominated team? I think you have a hard time really figuring out what the identity of this Philadelphia Eagles team is.
Well, I think they definitely have to be a running team first. When you look at all the injuries at the receiver position, no Alshon Jeffries, no Deshaun Jackson, and Aguilar has just been up and down roller coaster. The only constant in that passing offense has been the tight ends, Goddard and Ertz.
And Zach Ertz.
And those are the constants. And I'm not saying that they can't get it done, but what the Eagles have always been able to do, and you hit it right on the head, they've been able to beat you up front. They've been able to out-physically man you up front, run the ball when they need to, and then stop the run when they need to. And those two things haven't happened on both sides of the ball.
The 2 games prior to this, both wins for the Philadelphia Eagles. They were able to rush the ball for a combined over 350 yards, and they kept both opponents under 100 yards rushing. That's huge in terms of who that team should be if they want to give themselves a chance to have success. No excuse to get away from the run game yesterday, knowing that you didn't have Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson.
Jenna, who are the Eagles? Mediocre football team. There's 5 teams in the NFC with 8 wins or more. The Eagles, we know the playoffs in the NFC, by the way. It's Green Bay, Minnesota, New Orleans, San Francisco, and Seattle, and whoever wins the pillow fight of the NFC East. Like, it's 5 8-win teams, and the 6-win Cowboys and the 5-win Eagles are going to battle it out to the end of the year.
You love pillow fights, Nick. Troy Aikman was singing Dak's praises, tweeting, quote, "I say pay the man." Nick, is it starting to look like Dak is worth a mega deal?
I mean, he's playing like it. If he can keep up 85% of this, he doesn't have to be 320 yards per game, 8.8 yards per attempt numbers. Those two numbers are trumped only by Patrick Mahomes in football this year. And people are credibly talking about if Patrick Mahomes is going to get $200 million with $120 million guaranteed. Dak, I'll tell you this much, Dak looks incredibly smart for betting on himself. I couldn't believe he did it. Couldn't believe he played a single game this year without accepting whatever the last best Cowboys offer was, because he doesn't have no big first-round money. No. He didn't have the ability to say, you know what, let me wait a little bit because I already have banked $20 million. 4th-round pick. And he said, no, I'm going to. People are laughing at the idea that I could want more than $35 million per year. I'm going to go out and play like a quarterback who deserves at least $35 million per year, and that is exactly what he's doing. So you've got, Canty, you've got 8 quarterbacks 8 quarterbacks who have signed contracts for $125 million or more. Their names are Derek Carr, Carson Wentz, Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff, Matt Stafford, Garoppolo, Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan. And you can pretty well tell, like, once a team signs a quarterback to that level contract, the only way they can be good is if that quarterback plays great. The only exception there is Garoppolo. Like, Rodgers playing great, Russell's playing great. Derek Carr, to his credit, I've been skeptical of him. He's playing great this year. Those teams are good. Wentz, Ryan, Goff, Stafford, not playing well. Their teams not doing well. So the question is, can Dak play up to the level of consistently deserving that contract? Up until a month ago, I'd have said no. I'd have said you are absolutely making a mistake if you give him this deal. I have to be open to the possibility that a fourth-year quarterback is just continuing to grow, and the trajectory that he's on right now says he would be worth the money. I'm still squeamish about it, but the numbers are so overwhelming, I can't dismiss the possibility the way I did at the beginning of the season.
Well, yeah, Dak's going to get his money because who do the Dallas Cowboys have as an option to replace him? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And I mean, based on the look of it in 2019, the Cowboys are probably going to win the division again. That would be 3 times in 4 years. And to have that as your start to your career, yeah, I would probably lean toward Dak Prescott breaking the bank and becoming the highest paid quarterback just because he has all the leverage, especially the way that he's playing right now and where that offense is right now. So, yeah, I look at this and I say that the Dallas Cowboys, they played a game of chicken with their quarterback and now they're going to lose.
But do you think it'd be money well spent for Dallas? Because we all agree he's going to, at the very least, become one of the 3 highest paid quarterbacks ever, maybe the highest. But do you think it's money well spent?
Well, here's the thing. You're going to have to balance the scales because you had the discount in Dak's first 4 years. I mean, there are over 40 quarterbacks this year that have a higher cap hit than Dak Prescott. So at some point, that bill is going to come due. And I think Jerry Jones recognizes by Dak being willing to gamble on himself, it's going to be more expensive as this thing continues to go on. So, yeah, I don't necessarily love the fact that Dak Prescott is going to make that kind of money, but that's the position that the Dallas Cowboys are in right now because they have a championship window that they've been able to put together. I mean, that's why you pay a running back $90 million because you think you're on the verge of being able to win a title. But, I mean, you're not going to compete for a title unless you got the quarterback in the fold. And so Dak Prescott fully understands that, which is why he's going to get that money.
Dak Prescott couldn't realistically play better than he's played the last couple of weeks. His numbers have been outstanding. So shouldn't the Cowboys be better? Shouldn't the Cowboys have a better record? If you're going to go pay him for the future and be like, you're our guy, most of the pieces around him are already in place. You wonder if, yeah, his numbers are great. The team's numbers are okay. They're not outstanding.
Right, but that's not, but in the past, there have been times where the Cowboys have won and Dak has been a passenger. And this gets me back to the old cudgel of quarterback wins, which is sometimes a quarterback's record is indicative of his play, and sometimes it absolutely is not. The Cowboys in the last 2 weeks are 1-1. Dak Prescott's play over the last 2 weeks is of a 2-0 quarterback. There have been times in his career where the Cowboys overperformed to Dak's level of play thanks to Zeke. Right now they are underperforming to Dak's level of play. They could have lost yesterday.
Yeah.
They were down early. It was a 6-point game, 27-21 late in that football game until Dak threw that pass we showed in the highlight to Zeke. He catches it at his shoestrings, goes in for the touchdown. They go for 2 and essentially put the football game away. Like the Cowboys right now, their issue is not Dak. Going into the year, I thought it was. And I still, and I know Cowboy fans are going to hate me for this, I still would hate to pay him $150 million. I'd hate it. Because we have seen so many more teams wrecked by that than teams who keep on ticking. And the teams that keep on ticking year after year are teams that have a guy like Russell Wilson, like Aaron Rodgers. People say Tom Brady always takes discounts. No, in 2010, when he got his first real contract, he was the highest paid player in the league. The Peyton Manning highest. Those guys, you just, whatever it costs, you pay, and it's always worth it. Dak, to me, even as great as he's played, he's not those guys. I don't believe in him the way I believe in Patrick Mahomes. And so they're going to pay him like that. and he and Patrick Mahomes are going to reset the quarterback market. I'm still a lot more confident in Mahomes than Dak, but the Cowboys put themselves in this position, and Dak, to his credit, believed he could do it. I can't believe he turned down the money this offseason. He looks like the smartest guy in the room.
But right now they saved money on Dak. They're not really paying him a lot this year, and they poured money into everyone else around him, and you want to know how much of Dak being as good as he is because of him alone or because of the money they have poured into, and how much of that changes when you do now pay Dak Prescott. All right, let's have some fun. We're going to play a little drawing a blank. Yesterday, there were a lot of great performances in the NFL, including Jimmy G, who threw 4 touchdowns against the Cardinals. Chris Canty, the best offensive performance on Sunday was blank.
It's got to be Lamar Jackson, Jenna. I mean, over 200 yards passing, another 86 on the ground, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers by Lamar Jackson. I mean, he's just been impressive. I mean, it's very rare where you have your quarterback as the leading rusher on a team, but, I mean, that's the place that the Ravens find themselves. This is a special quarterback, and good on John Harbaugh and Greg Roman building the offense around him and not forcing Lamar Jackson to conform to some of the conventional offenses around the league.
I got to go with Dak Prescott. Over 400 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Over the last 2 games, he's thrown for the most yards in Cowboy history
over
the last 2 games, and so that's impressive when you think about the quarterbacks that they've had in their history.
Well, I'm gonna. Those are 2 great answers, but these days I feel like the white quarterback never gets a chance, so I'm gonna go to Jimmy Garoppolo. Listen, Jimmy G, admittedly, threw 2 interceptions, one of which was brutal. However, after the game they had against Seattle, had that play not happened, had he not delivered that ball on time for the game-winning touchdown, we would be talking about the Niners almost a lock to fall all the way to the 5 seed and be in real certainly a lock to not get a bye. Jimmy G, they couldn't get their run game going at all. The defense was not great, and he, despite the mistakes, was really good. So I'll give Jimmy G some love.
All right, on to the other side. Kyle Allen came crashing back down to earth, to my dismay. Tossed 4 interceptions against the Falcons. So, Canty, the most disappointing performance yesterday was blank.
To me, Jenna, it's got to be Mitch Trubisky after their defense goes out there and forces 2 turnovers on the first couple of possessions for the Rams. The fact that you didn't come away from those turnovers with any points, like no points?
None.
Like, come on, Mitch. I mean, you've got to do more for your team right now. The Bears are struggling to find themselves on the offensive side of the ball. I just thought that Mitch Trubisky's performance last night left a lot to be desired. He had an opportunity to answer a lot of questions, but he didn't do so. And now you're going into probably an offseason where they're going to have questions about whether or not he should be the starter in 2020.
I got to go with Kyle Allen. I think everybody in America outside of Nick Wright have been talking about Cam going to be looking for a new location after this year. And now two back-to-back games where he hasn't performed up to par. Kyle Allen, man, we got to step your game up.
Yeah, here's why, after you guys both gave great answers to the first question, you guys both gave terrible answers to this question, because it's disappointed. How are you going to be disappointed in Mitch Trubisky for being Mitch Trubisky? How are you going to be disappointed in Kyle Allen for being Kyle Allen? They are who we thought they were. What, Cam?
Yeah, they're not who Ryan Pace thought he was when he made the second overall pick.
Well, then be disappointed in Ryan Pace.
Come on now.
I don't blame people for being themselves. Tom Brady went into this game with a chip on his shoulder, talking about the offense got to get it going, understood that the only thing preventing the Patriots from being overwhelming favorites in the AFC and to win the Super Bowl is their offense. And they muster 1 touchdown, and it's thrown by Edelman. Brady almost threw 2 picks in the end zone. Tom Brady, I'm disappointed in because I actually expected more from him as opposed to these 2 fellas.
Tom Brady has been consistent all year.
Consistently mediocre. You know what? It was a flaw in my argument. It's a good point.
Thank you.
Jennings. Well done, sir.
I appreciate that.
All right, Dak Prescott had himself a great game yesterday. Dak's one of 5 quarterbacks drafted in 2016 to start the season, along with Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Jacoby Brissett, and Brandon Allen. So, Kenny, the quarterback drafted in 2016 you would want most on your team is blank.
I would go with Carson Wentz, Jenna, and I know that Dak Prescott's team has a better record this year, but if you would have swapped the 2 quarterbacks out, the Dallas Cowboys are still going to be winning the NFC East, and I don't know if the Philadelphia Eagles are as close in the standings with the Cowboys. So I look at Carson Wentz, that throw that he made on 4th down at the end of that game to Nelson Aguilar. There's only a handful of quarterbacks that can put that ball there in that situation. Now, unfortunately for Wentz, his wide receiver couldn't couldn't come up with the play.
Right.
But it still doesn't stop the fact that the quarterback gave his team a chance.
I'm going with Dak Prescott again. He's been playing lights out in a must-play lights out year of a contract up. He has been why, again, as I've mentioned earlier, why we've been talking about the Dallas Cowboys. He's the only constant on that offensive side of the ball, specifically on that team, that has been anywhere close to being special. Dak Prescott.
Your point on Wentz, you're absolutely right. The throw on fourth down was spectacular. But the throw on second and third down that led to that, them being in 4th and 10, both those he short hopped. Those were bad throws, put him in that spot. I can't believe I'm saying this. Dak, I going into the year, you could not have convinced me I would ever say for a week, for a month, for a year, for a career that I would rather have Dak than Wentz. But Wentz, it's not just the arrows pointing down. Wentz is playing the worst football since his rookie season. Dak's playing the best football of his career, including his excellent rookie season. I got to give it to Dak Prescott. I can't believe it. And by the way, Jared Goff, not even in the conversation, bro.
Why do you got to keep doing that, man? Just give it to Dak. You ain't got to say I can't believe it.
Because there's caveats when it comes to him being wrong. Have you met him?
I'm not sure I'm wrong yet.
No, Dak is not a better quarterback than
All right, this season's MVP
better.
could be an all-timer. Lamar Jackson made another claim for the trophy with his 4 touchdowns yesterday. Chris Canty, the MVP right now, is blank.
It's still Russell Wilson. I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment. Russ and the Seahawks didn't play this past Sunday. They were on a bye week, and I can't forget that they were the team that on Monday night hung the first L for the San Francisco 49ers on them this season. So Russell Wilson, I mean, he carried the team to the playoffs last year, 35 touchdowns to only 7 interceptions. He's having a similar type of year this season. I don't think there's a player in the National Football League that means more to his team and them having a chance to compete than Russell Wilson does to the Seahawks.
Lamar Jackson. You can call me a prisoner of the moment. You can call me whatever you want to. Lock me up, throw me in a cell, and throw on Lamar Jackson. I'm going to be just fine. I like what this kid has provided. He's a spark that none of us really saw being like this year. Again, he took the offseason seriously the way that he should have, coming off the year that he had, taking over for Joe Flacco. He's resurging this organization, let alone this offense, turning it into something special. I love what Lamar Jackson has done up to this point.
48 hours ago, Russell Wilson had a substantial lead in this race. That lead has narrowed immensely thanks to what Lamar did, but Russell Wilson still has the lead. It is very close. So I'd say it's right now 60-40 Russell Wilson over Lamar. Lamar does have the head-to-head victory. I think Russell Wilson has the less talented team around him, and Russell's obviously doing it in the far tougher division and conference. Russell Wilson by a hair, but Lamar Jackson could catch up over the final third of the season.
All right, good stuff.
By the way, Patrick Mahomes ain't eliminated from it yet. He does play.
He gone.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern.